I just wanted to really quickly, I thought it'd be helpful just to do a couple quick follow-ups on some updates. Now, I see a lot of familiar faces with the council meetings, so if you've been in the council meetings, you probably have most of these updates, but give some updates and then talk a little bit about financing, and specifically public safety building financing. That's been some questions. I had a 10 Squared at Granger nonprofit meeting last night. A couple people asked about that as well, so we'll give some updates on that and what the council has planned. That's going to be on a discussion item, but I want to take a couple minutes early on and just tell you a little bit about myself, if you don't know about me personally. So I my parents grew up, I have a family farm in northwest Missouri, so Grant City, if you've ever heard of Mount Ayr, south of Mount Ayr, across the border is a little town called Grant City. So my dad was farmers, they have a Century farm down there. My dad worked for the railroad and retired for the railroad. So I've lived in Grant City, I've lived in Old Wine, I've lived in Manly, Iowa by Mason City. We moved around to Wisconsin for a while. We finished in Boone. So I graduated high school, junior high and high school, went to Boone, and my family lived in Boone for a long time. So I say all this to tell you that a lot of it's been small towns, if you Old Wine or Manly or whatever. So graduated high school in Boone, got my undergrad degree in economics, moved back here, started working for Wells Fargo. Met my wife. I've been married 20 years. Working at Wells Fargo. I quit my job at Wells Fargo and went to law school at Drake. So that was in 2006. So I was a 30-year-old law student. Went to law school, got my law degree, practiced law for about 5 years downtown. My wife and I had our son named Leo. Leo is now in 8th grade, but once we had him, I wanted a little more 8 to 5 regular job. So I went back to Wells Fargo, and that's where I currently work. I work at Wells Fargo in compliance. So that's my current job. I keep my law license. I do my education every year, but I don't practice law per se at this point. So how I got to Granger, my wife and I were living in a townhouse by Jordan Creek Mall. We actually were living in there before the mall even opened, so that tells you how there was that little golf course was still there. It was like the Target, and then they were building the mall, and there was nothing in between. So it tells you about how West Des Moines changed on Mill Civic there. But when we had Leo, we decided to get a bigger house, and one thing I wanted, based on my history, was a small town, small schools, community. So found a house in Granger, loved it here, moved here in 2012. Almost right away, within a year or two, there was a very similar situation to Scott Brandt. So Scott Brandt just resigned off the council. One of the Granger City Council people resigned, and they had a public meeting. They were going to fill that spot. And I remember going to it and, was going to give them the spiel and say, hey, I'd love to help out or be on the council. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but my neighbor, Jody Berman, was there. So I live right next to Jody Berman. So everyone was giving their spiel on, hey, I think I'd be a good council member. Here's what it is. And then Jody stood up and gave his spiel, and then his family, if you don't know them, they're like the greatest people ever. So I stood up and I said, well, Jody wants it, that's who you should give it to, but I'm glad to help the city however I can. And at that point, there was a Board of Adjustments spot available. So I joined the Board of Adjustments with the city a couple years before I became the mayor. And then a couple years later, I ran for mayor. I've been mayor for 8 years. So city service, probably about 10 years. I mentioned Leo, he's in 8th grade, he turns 14 in January. He's excited about the new fairway. He can't wait to take people's groceries out. But I've been coaching if you've got a kid probably between the age of 12 and 14, I've coached them in something, whether it's Parks and Rec Bam Bam, Parks and Rec Soccer, Parks and Rec Flag Football, Parks and Rec Basketball, Little League Machine Pitch, Club Basketball, Club Football, you name it, I've coached for about 10 or 11 years too. So I say all this to kind of give the background of that I'm fully engaged and all in on the city, and I hope you guys understand that. And from literally almost the time I got here, I've been invested in trying to make this city a better place. So wanted to give you a background and a little bit about myself and my family, so you're aware. So really what I wanted to do is give a high-level update on some things going on in town, and then talk a little bit about EMS fire update, since that was the big focus of the last town hall. And then we will shift to public safety building and more kind of a financial discussion on how we afford things, how we pay for things, how it kind of works. So I hope everyone's got the handouts, and we'll go over some stuff with those. But so from an update perspective, we do have a date from Fairway. So Fairway has given us the target date of December 17th for an open. So that could move by a week or two, but they feel pretty good at this point on saying that. So that will be great. Really excited for that. So December 17th, they're hoping to open. You saw the water tower, it's being painted. The logo got on both sides, I think, now. So that is close to complete, if not fully complete at this point. We're still working on Sycamore Street. That's a work in progress. The water tower in Sycamore Street, we hope to have going by November. So hope to have that done, the road done, the water tower operational and pumping water and doing all that good stuff by November. So those are kind of some of the bigger projects. We have another project from a financing standpoint is the development on the south side of 141, the Knolls at Beaver Creek. We're still talking with the developers. They haven't brought any plans to planning and zoning yet. So there's nothing official in terms of the plat or what they're doing or how fast they're going to be building. So still in discussions with them. And so in terms of financing, we're running water and sewer to a lift station down there, and that will not only allow us to serve that area, but will also allow us to serve everything on the north side that we're annexing into town. That's east of Twin Eagles. So all of that will funnel downhill into that lift station. So that lift station won't be just for that development. That will be basically the future of this community. We are annexing and going to finalize that in the next 60 days, land all the way out to 121st Street. So the town of Granger will go out to 121st Street, and that will allow us literally decades of land and availability to grow. So planning from an infrastructure standpoint is done out there. Kirk has talked a little bit about the Xenia agreement he reached with Xenia Water. Him and Bob did a fantastic job finalizing that contract for us. Basically resets, we had all sorts of different agreements with Xenia in terms of Polk County side, Dallas County side, north, south, east, west. Could we buy it? Could we not buy it? Are we entitled to it? Are we not? This kind of reset things and just had us both parties look and say, hey, who can serve this area the best? Who's got the infrastructure there already? Who can serve it the best, and what makes sense? And so the city ended up picking up about I don't know the exact amount, but it was hundreds of acres of land to serve water. Again, east into Polk County there with some of our annexation, the south area, we can serve that now, and Xenia took over some of the stuff that's northwest in city limits, just because they have the infrastructure up there already. They're going to be serving the new middle school, if you didn't know that. They have the big pipes up there already. That would cost the city a lot of money in infrastructure to get the water going up there. Just from a height and depth standpoint, it didn't make sense for us to spend all that money to go that way. So when they can serve it, so a big lift for the city there too. So you guys probably know too, we have a land use agreement. So we hired a firm to help us with that. Land use planning, industrial, commercial, residential, mixed use, where we want that out, and it's not even in the city limits, it's a little outside of city limits, and that way when developers come to us, they know where the infrastructure is, where we're planning roads, what we plan on, or what we desire to be in terms of residential, commercial, industrial, where that all goes. So we're in a really good position moving forward with development, and we're really going to crank that up in terms of our aggressiveness in trying to find some commercial and industrial development. And you'll see some of the impact when we talk about numbers and what that means. But we absolutely have to do that to ease the tax burden on the citizens, right? The residential just houses alone can't get us to where we need to be. If we want taxes to go down in a significant way, we need industrial and commercial development in town. So, EMS and fire. So EMS and fire, we combined the departments. As you know, we have now Tyler Rommel and Robin Durners running EMS for us under Tyler. The team has done a great job. They've added new people, they've added local people. The last 90 days has been fantastic from a communication standpoint with Kirk and I and the council, from a team morale standpoint. Everything's going really well. I've said this a few times, but the 18 months prior, and this covers 2 or 3 EMS chiefs, we were averaging about 60% call response. The last 3 months with this new team, we're over 90% call response. And that's what everybody wants, right? They want us answering more calls and doing more good for the community when we can. So exciting news, and couldn't be prouder of those guys. They've put in a ton of work and a ton of time. So thank you to them for that. So related to that, public safety building. So public safety building update right now. A couple years ago, we passed the bond. You guys passed the bond. I think it was 80% or something like that. It was fantastic. We can borrow up to $3 million. Now, this is very important that everybody knows this. We have not borrowed that money. We have not used that money. We can't legally even borrow that money and use it on something else. Okay, so that money is still available to be borrowed. We can still borrow $3 million. We can still build a public safety building. At this point, we've looked at several other options. We've looked at expanding this for City Hall and moving some people in, or expanding on back of current City Hall to add some rooms. I think now, and I think we're going to talk about it, we're going to put it on the next agenda to formally talk about it. I think now what we're going to try to do, based on what we're going to talk about financially, is try to phase the project. So can we just build work in our land that we've got with the design that we have, and can we phase that through a period of time to get it built? So we still want to do that. We're still aggressively doing that, and we're going to have some formal discussions around that next month. But the key is there's really no timetable on the money or borrowing the money, right? So once it passed the bond, we can borrow the money up to $3 million. It doesn't give us a time frame. Now, I've always said if we get past the 5-7 years, it probably makes sense to, or it could be a new council, or it could be a new mayor, it makes sense to re-up that with the voters and make sure that's still what they want to do. But really, we don't have a time limit. Once the vote passes, we can spend that money on what the voters allow us to spend. So things are still moving forward there. Really what we have to do is finish the water tower, finish the street, how much that costs, have a good idea. The one thing that's up in the air is have a good idea on the south development, what that's going to cost and where that money is going to come from. Or is the developer maybe not going to move forward for a couple of years, right? If they're not going to move forward for a couple of years, that's a big expense we no longer have. We'll have some bandwidth to get creative there. So once that's done, so just to give you a high level financing update, we have an external firm that handles our financing for us, an expert. That's what they do. They work with municipalities on lending and budgeting. We also have an external law firm. So anytime we have bonds out, anytime we're going to have a couple of public hearings next week about bonding and the street and some of that stuff. All of that stuff goes through external law firms. Our engineer works on it with our city attorney and external attorneys and our financial guys, and they get all that stuff per Iowa code. So all of that is being done, and we'll talk a little bit about where that money comes from and how much wiggle room we have, if anything. One of the things that we made it really clear we wanted to do when we asked you guys to vote yes was we didn't want it to raise taxes, right? So we've been very good the last 5 or 6 years on doubling up on debt payments and paying stuff off early so that we can have room to do projects like the water tower and the street and infrastructure and public safety. So we want to do that. We want to do it in a responsible fashion. The other thing we got to think about is our city, based on our total assessed value, which is, I think, on this number that you see on your sheet, we'll talk about, it's $114 million. We're only allowed to legally borrow up to a certain amount. And so you also, as a city, want to have some set aside, right? You don't want to borrow you don't want to be at your borrowing maximum, even if you can pay for it necessarily, because if Project Hawk or something big comes along and they say, hey, we need infrastructure over on the west side and we got to put in a $2 million lift station, we want to do that if it's a $20 million project, right? Or if it's something that's going to impact the city in a way that would really ease taxpayers' burdens in the long run. So you want to have a little bit of wiggle room, but again, that is for once the water tower's done, the street's done, we circle up with our financial guy. He comes in generally in our meetings when we do budget meetings in January or February. He's here giving a presentation with packets at one of those meetings. So if you've been here for any of those meetings, he will come, and his name's Travis Squires. He comes and gives us a presentation, and here's your bandwidth, here's your growth, here's what we think you can afford right now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, based on different rates of growth, all sorts of bar charts and fun stuff. But really easy to just swallow the 40-page presentation, no problem, right? So, that's on the agenda to do for us. Let me stop there. But before I get into kind of digging through the numbers and get real deep in the weeds, questions that I can take right now on what I've covered so far.
Yeah, I guess I've got one. I'm a public service building. I understand you want to do it in phases. Where the location was that still where we had originally looked
Yes.
for it?
Yeah.
So
yes.
still
We'd like to do it. Yes. We'd like to do it there. So yeah, if we phase it. So one of the things we've talked about the last couple of months, if you've been at meetings, is stripping some dirt off our land north of the school. And a big expense for the building was getting the site ready from a dirt and cement standpoint, right? That was a pretty significant expense. So if we can use some of our own dirt and not have to pay for a bunch of dirt, right, and do some of that, that puts us in a lot better position to kind of jumpstart that as well.
So say we get the new public service building out, what happens to the old unit?
Ideally, we would like to put it, if you're asking me what I'd like to do with it, ideally I'd like a developer to come in and either knock it down or do some kind of design where we have more of a Main Street feel, right? I'd like to have a Main Street feel there. So I'd like to put it on the tax rolls privately, ideally.
But nothing set, so.
No, we don't have more. And again, all that stuff would be discussed and put on agendas and all that good stuff. What else?
I would think that has significant value to it too. Which could help cut the cost of the new building.
Yeah, and there's Main Street grants you can get through the state and stuff available as well with some of that. So I think that'd be a good opportunity for folks, especially with Fairway open and some of those things. If we can build that safety building in the next few years and phase that in and get that back on the tax rolls, that'd be nice. Any other questions? Okay, well, let's hop into this document. So this first one that reads across here, this is just a historical for your reference on what our city's tax levy has been. So the bottom red number is basically what you pay per $1,000 on your property taxes that goes to the city, right? And again, I don't want to get too far down in the weeds here, but what we're trying to do as a city is keep it as consistent as we can. So we don't want any big drops, big raises that'll really shock people, right? We want to keep it as level and going in a downwardly direction, ideally, as we can. So this doesn't go back, but 2019 was 1580, 2018 was 1687, 2017 was 1587. 2020 was 1542. So since about 2020, around COVID, we've tried to be between 1540 or 1520 and 1550, and that's where we like to stay, and go down if we can. Now that number, that doesn't mean if your house is appraised at, let's just use round numbers because it's easy. Let's all hope we have $1 million house, right? If you have $1 million house, that doesn't mean you're paying $1,523 for every $1,000 up to $1 million. So the state sets a limit on what you can tax, and historically, until a couple of years ago, it was 53%. So that means $530,000 of your $1 million house would be subject to these levies, and not only a city levy, right? You have a school levy and a county levy that you also pay. That makes up all your property taxes. So they just recently lowered that to 47%. The legislature in Iowa is very aggressive around lowering property taxes. And you'll see in some of the numbers here, even you can look in the top number, our general levy. Like if you look last year, you guys see the number that's $976,306. Second from the right, top line, under the 2025. You guys see that number? 976,306.
Yeah.
That's how much the city had to budget its general fund with last year. This year's budget, you can see it went down. So we had less money to budget with than we did the year before. And that, again, that's based on legislative changes, the percent of your house. If you've got a homeowner's exemption, or if you're of a certain age, you can get an exemption that will take that number down even further, right? So if you have $1 million house and it's $470,000, this is your taxable, and then you've got some exemptions. There's some legal exemptions you can take that drives that number down even further. But when we're talking about per thousand, that $15, that's kind of where we're driving that number. So high level, we like to keep that there or trend it down. If you go, let's just look at the 2026 column, which is the furthest to the right. And that's also, this sheet is basically the 2026 column on the furthest right, just in a little bit more line item detail. All this stuff, by the way, available online. If you go to the state of Iowa, you can find this information, and it'll do graphs and charts and do all sorts of cool stuff for you. So if you do have time and can get on the Iowa website, I'll try to link the website so we can put them on the city Facebook page and on our city website, so you can go and see where all that historical information is. I mean, you can go all the way back to 2001, I think. But okay, so the first line item, that $937,380 with a rate of 8.25729. Do you guys see that line item? That's our general fund. That's our general levy amount. That's set by the state, so we can't go above that number. If you look back, it was the same last year, but they changed it the year before, right? So the year before, the 4 years before that, you can see it was $8.10. So that doesn't change very often, but that number won't get any bigger, right? So the only way we can increase our money in the general fund is to build more stuff in town. Or conversely, your assessed value of your house goes up, that will raise it up a little bit. But again, we're talking about, even if your assessment goes up quite a bit by the time you take out the 47% and some of those things, it's not a big impact. But if you want that general fund number to get bigger than 937, we need commercial development, we need industrial development, and new homes. That's what makes that number bigger, okay? That number funds our library, it funds city hall staff, it funds police staff, it funds EMS department, some of the EMS fire department, Parks and Rec staff. So it's mostly salaries, right? Because we have full-time employees, Parks and Rec. We have 3 city hall staff. We have 3 police officers full-time. We have library staff. All of that comes out of that general fund. Okay, that's where that money's coming from. If you go down to the next line item, there's a mistake. What's that?
Your next line item, don't you think that's an error? That 94,643. You got 2 identical numbers there.
Oh no, because we can.
Employee benefits.
Yeah, because there's other benefits besides, so health insurance and stuff like that. So those numbers are right, Christy? Yeah, we can levy it, and can we levy up to IPERS, or how does it, I'm not sure how that works, but those numbers are right. So but first is the insurance, self-insurance for the city. So that's that 96 cents, and then to go down to where you're saying the $94,000, 0.83370. That's to give our folks IPERS and health insurance benefits and benefits, non-salary benefits, I guess you
So
would say.
salaries went from 63,000 on IPERS up to 94,000?
part of that
Yes.
IPERS and employee benefits is paid from lost, because our ballot on the lost money, 25% to be used for property tax relief, which is I use towards our IPERS and our health insurance and all that stuff. So that we're not putting the entire amount on you certified for property taxes for you guys to pay. That 15 would be more like 20 if I did that. So we use our loss because we can for our resolution for the ballot that was on the ballot on when you guys approved the loss, and that we use 25% or can use up to 25% for property tax relief.
Yes.
And we also use for
That's a revenue source
It's a
that
revenue
I'm going to
source.
get to. And yeah, this stuff's easy to get lost in the sauce here, but those numbers are right. They're employee benefit lines, so non-salary employee benefits. So we lost, and we have made in the last 2 or 3 years, we've made some significant improvements to our health insurance because we were losing people. We were losing people to cities and municipalities that had better health insurance. So we made a concerted effort to really improve our health insurance so we could keep people. And then the next group there is debt service levy. So debt service is borrowed money, the payments we have to make on money we borrow, right? So that levy is $4.34. We made we're going to make $582,000 in debt payments this year. If you go back the year before it was 608, you can kind of track that back. But the reason I really want to talk about debt levy is because when we talk about building a public safety building, if we spend, so we budgeted $2.5 million on that building. If we spend $2.5 million and we have to debt it out at 5%, I'm just throwing numbers out here, that's going to be $200,000 a year. That's going to be our payment for 20 years to pay that off. That $200,000 a year has to come from somewhere, right? We have to pay for it. So we've either got to have debt, we've got to have space under this debt service levy here to keep the debt service number at a reasonable number so it doesn't go way up. Or we've got to find other spots for it. And I'll talk about some other spots, but I think it's pretty clear from the general fund, we can't take it from the general fund, right? I mean, it'd be nice if we had enough businesses and industry in town where that number was huge and we could say the $200,000 would come from general fund and we'll just pay the debt with that. Well, we can't do that, right? We're already stretching that general fund as thin as it can go. We're actually using sales tax revenue to cover some of that. So the other choices are sales tax revenue, or the other thing we can do is now we're really getting in the weeds, it's called tax increment financing, right? So you can essentially as a city capture value in an area that you designate and then use that money for some purpose like improvements or debt. So what we try to do as a city is if we're going to, so the easiest way I can say this is the south area south of 141, the Knolls, right? We're trying to talk to the developer and saying, look, if we have to invest $2.5 million down there, we know our yearly payments are going to be $200,000. You have to build, right? You have to develop in a way where we can capture $200,000 worth of TIF to pay that debt. Otherwise, it's got to come from the debt levy or the general levy, right? So a lot of this stuff is scaling and figuring out. That's why we hired the financial guy, right? And external attorneys. It's like, okay, we're paying double. So if we stop paying double on certain things, that'll free up $100,000, let's say. Well, okay, $100,000, that'll allow us to borrow $2 million this year or $3 million 2 years from now, whatever that is. But those are the types of conversations that the council and I have to have with that financial firm in terms of quote unquote affording a public safety building, right? Because we could, in theory, borrow the money, $3 million, the debt service payment's $250,000. Next year, just change that $4.34 number to $6.60, right? And just pay it out of that. But that would mean your taxes would go up from 15 something to 18, and nobody wants it, right? And furthermore, I said we weren't going to do that, so I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that. So we've got to figure out where that money comes from. So I hope that helps. Now, I haven't talked about water, sewer, public works because that's kind of its own beast. So water bills, sewer bills. We also get state money per citizen in town for road use tax. That's revenue for the city. But those funds have to be used legally for those purposes. So we can't take money out of the water account and buy something for the city unless it's water related or sewer related, right? So, for example, the water tower we're building, that money to pay back the water tower is coming from the water and sewer funds, right? So that 434 number, that's the debt levy and our general levy, none of that's paying for the water tower. The water tower is getting paid for from the water and sewer money. So in terms of where you get money from to buy big ticket items, it's very similar in a roundabout way to your household expenses. It's just there's certain areas you can and can't use those expenses to pay it back, right? So water sewer has to come from the water sewer, road use tax, that sort of thing. So road use tax, water sewer is one area. TIF revenue is another area that you capture from an area. Sales tax, we talk about. So when we say loss, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about local option sales tax. So that's the 1 cent extra you pay when you go to Jordan Creek Mall or whatever. The city gets money from Dallas County and Polk County every month. Can we get those checks every month? Okay. Every month we get checks from Dallas County, Polk County for sales tax revenue. Now, on the ballot, when you guys pass that, 25% of it, as Chrissy said, 25% of that money has to go back to tax relief for you guys. So it has to go to pay off some of these expenses. So we don't even see it or use it. It just goes back. Your tax levy goes down, right? So ideally, what we want to do with that money, right, is if we can afford it and we get that opportunity, is pay more than 25%, right? Because if we get the lost money and we're not using the lost money, tax relief is better on the front end for you guys. But we have to put 25% of it toward that. And lost money, I think we get $30,000 of. Is that? Yeah. So let's just say $350,000 a year. We get that kind of revenue. So $88,000 of it, 25% of it, has to go just straight back to tax relief. And then the other $270,000 of it, give or take, the city can use as needed. But again, you don't want to, and one of the things we did this year, or we've done the past few years, is we've used that to supplement our general fund and our general levy to budget, and you don't really want to do that. You don't want to do that because I talk about the legislature, right? The legislature will do anything they can to lower your taxes. They've had their eye on sales tax revenue and how it's distributed and where it should go for a while. They haven't ever pulled the trigger on something, but they could yank a portion of that or a lot of that out like that. So you shouldn't be budgeting that money. That should be in a rainy day fund for tax relief and things that are absolutely necessary. So we're really trying as a city to lessen that impact how we can. And then you have the debt levy and the general levy that we kind of already talked about. I'm giving you guys a lot of information. I'm sorry, some of it might, it's a lot of stuff to digest. But what questions can I try to answer for you in terms of that?
Sorry, I'm being very verbal tonight.
No, that's okay.
The sales tax or the property tax that we'll be getting from the commercial properties, when would those be actually monies to be spent? I mean, are we looking at the 220s or 2020s?
Like if somebody builds a building,
The Fairway then.
yeah, you usually pay your taxes, what is it, 18 months in arrears or something like that, 12 to 18 months in arrears. So generally, if a building like Fairway gets done and on the tax rolls for their January assessment, we would see that revenue probably in 2 budgets from that, right? So, yeah, there's a gap with that.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, but you think about that, that is, our total assessment in Granger is $114 million. So, you talk about what kind of impact you can have, but let's just say Fairway is a $5 million building, that's what they promised to build, and Absolute, let's just say, is $10 million. That's $15 million, right? So by the time you take the out, but that's still a significant hit to 114, right? Now I'm not going to say we're getting an Amazon or anything huge like that, but the Amazon buildings that are in Bondurant or some of those huge projects, those are $50 million assessments. So if you land something like that as a city, even if it's half that big, even if it's 20%, that can have a significant impact on your bottom line in terms of what you bring into your general fund on a yearly
all right,
basis.
so right now, at this point, and even for 2026, we are only counting on commercial property coming from Barna. That's
Yeah, Absolute might have paid it. I'm not sure if Absolute's on this assessment or not. I think they are. But yeah, there's usually a 12 to 18 month gap when it gets done to when the property tax starts getting paid by the entity, right? Yep. So I said I was only going to talk for 25 minutes and then take questions, and I'm up to 40 minutes. So I'll take any questions people have. And you don't have to ask questions about this. I mean, you can. I know it's a lot to take in, but we do a process. We have a months-long process. So our budget, we start basically before the end of the year. Our budget runs from July 1 to June 30, but we have to certify it with the state by the end of April. So generally from from January to March, we are getting our revenue information, getting our levy information, trying to figure out what the departments want. And so we have a lot of extra meetings in that time, or we run our meetings long. So our normal council meeting starts at 7. We usually have a special council meeting that starts at 5 or 5:30. And really what we try to do, how we do that is we have the department heads kind of, we give them their 5-year picture of budget and say, okay, what do you want? What are your wants? What are your needs, right? And they bring that to the council, and we take all that information, and we look through it, we discuss it, and then we get a month or two later, we get the numbers from the county in terms of, okay, what's our assessment number going to be? What's our expected revenue with our general levy? How much money are we going to have to spend? And then there's generally a gap there, right? It's what everybody wants and what we have to spend. And then, okay, how are we going to bridge that, and how much are we going to bridge that, and how? So, and a lot of that, led to some consternation this year, and I completely get it. This has been a tough year from a budgeting standpoint. So yeah, this has probably been the first year in a while where we're not kind of rubber stamping what people want. So.
You brought up the water rates, the water budget. What were the rate increases? What was that increment?
So we had a ordinance in place that was, I think, 6% a year increase on the water rate. Now, when we applied with the state for the funding, they said that wasn't sufficient for the water tower, so they made us raise the rate by 12%. So the rate raised by 12% year one, and then I'm not sure, do we have a year 2, year 3 raise for our?
Last one was in July. Last increase was just this past July.
Yeah, and we have it in an ordinance. We have our ordinance requests. What's the name of the company that's been doing this?
Iowa codification.
Iowa what? Codification. So we've sent, I know our online codes are behind, but we've sent it out months ago to a company to update all that for us. And get it all updated and online and updated. But I think October, we're supposed to have that. But yeah, the state wouldn't give us the loan unless we raised them 12%. So we had to do that. What I will say is that loan through the state's SRF fund for the water tower is, I think, 2.5% or 3%. So the options were raise the water rates 12%, and get a 2% loan on $3 million, or 2.5% loan on $3 million, or keep our ordinance of 6% and borrow the money at 6 or 7%. And that's long term. It's not what we wanted to do, but kind of the state put us in that position, so that's what we had to do.
So how long are the rates gonna continue to increase then?
I don't have the ordinance in front of me, so we'll have to get the ordinance and see. I don't, it's not 12% a year or anything, is it? It was 12% and then,
And then we were going back down. It's 12%, and then it's going back down to 7%.
okay. Yeah, we can clarify that. I'll write that down and clarify the water rates.
And the water rates aren't listed correctly on the website. Like if you go to Public Works and the water, they're not.
Yeah, another thing I'm following up with Aaron in from the last one is getting more, I know there were some people that want more information on the water, the information that's on the water bill, kind of how, so we've been talking about, I'll get some information out on the next newsletter in terms
Because
of.
the rate is not on the bill and legally it's supposed to be. It's an Iowa code that
The
it's.
water rate is not on the bill?
My water rate's not on my bill from Oak City either.
I mean, it says, I mean, if you read the Iowa code, it's supposed to be on there. And there's, on the water bill, there's like there's a column for it. I mean, it's apparent that there's a column that's empty. So there's room for it, is what I'm saying, like.
All right, yep, we can look into that.
Are we upgrading our sewer system as we go along? Because our sewer rates are the problem with the homeowners. They're very expensive, but I understand that they have to
Yep.
redo our sewer problems.
Yep, so we've completed lining, I think Aaron completed lining a lot of the Dallas County side of town with sewer rates, so we can look at that for years and years. So we have an audit, there's an audit going on right now of Granger. The state audits us every year. For years, we didn't have enough in our wastewater sewer fund. They want you to have, the state wants you to have X percent of your yearly in the bank at all times, kind of a minimum balance. So a lot of that was for the minimum balance. So I've kind of been elbowing them to see if we can lower that rate, even if it's a couple percent. I think it would be helpful. Again, this is also stuff, by the way, that we talk to our financial firm about, because the same discussions that go in from our debt levy and our general levy with how much money we have is very similar with water, because we've got to pay for the water plant, the sewer plant, the water tower. So it's very similar. Like, okay, and he's the one that gave us the 6% ordinance rates, right? So nothing's set in stone from that point. So I totally understand and I totally get, and there's people on the council that are the same way. The sewer rate's too high, and when can we lower the water rate? So I think for us, if we're in a good position with talking to Travis here in the next couple of months, I've been asking for the sewer rate to go down 2 or 3% for a while.
Well, I know years ago, and Randy will probably remember this, Nancy might, actually, they were pumping that waste uphill when they said, no, this is not working. So then they had to scrap that and build another sewer plant. So the rates went up because of that.
Right, yeah, we're paying for the
But
plant.
they stayed up here, and that's been a lot of years ago.
That is a common government problem, right? Well, it's a common societal problem too. I mean, when you're talking about inflation, right? It's like, okay, if inflation's done, why aren't the prices going down? It's hard to get the prices to go down, but yeah, I totally get it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, what else?
I'd just like to make one other remark. We mentioned, taxes that you, if you're certain age, you could file with Dallas County to have your taxes lowered on your home. I don't know how many people here are in that age group. I happen to be one of them. What Dallas County does is they actually increase the value of your home. So you might accidentally pay $50 to $100 less per year. It sounds really good, and yeah, I can use that money, but it doesn't turn out as good as it sounds.
Yeah, and that's always a tough part of.
And that's not Granger, that's Dallas.
That's always a tough part of this too, because when we have to publish our notices during budget time, we always have to publish language like maximum levy or maximum rate, or we have to publish language that the state makes us publish that sounds like we're gouging everyone for as much money as we possibly can, which is generally not what we're trying to do, right? So we're trying to keep the levy similar, or at least have it trend down a little bit if we can, but at the same time, the county increases your assessment, and then you end up paying more taxes.
Well, we all appreciate the clean water, that we can get rid of our sewage, that we have services in town. So
We have put a lot of money into the water plant recently too, and we filled in lots. So when they built it with room for 5 filters, but only had 3 going. We've got all 5 filters out there now, operational. We're going to be making another enhancement so that we can. Right now, you got to kind of turn off some to turn on the rest when you're flushing them, doing some of the maintenance you have to do. We're going to upgrade that to where you can kind of all do it at the same time and still keep water flowing, which will be good from a water and wastewater perspective. We're in really good shape, especially with the new water tower. We can service 4,000, 5,000 people fairly easily. Now, if you're looking 40 years out, we start to be, if we ever get to 8,000, 10,000 people, then you start looking to, okay, do we need to expand the plant? But at that point, Grimes has connected to Des Moines Sewer at that point, so it's probably a matter of you're not spending a bunch of money. I mean, this is 20 years down the road, right? So, but you're not spending a bunch of money to build a new or expand your wastewater plant. You'd be, okay, how much is it going to be to run a line to Grimes and just attach to Des Moines like a lot of other communities do?
But hopefully too, we'll have enough business in town that it will help.
Yep. Who knows what's going to be in 20 years?
So with that new water tower, it's gonna be basically for this side of town, right? Because like we live in the old part, and I know our water's still pretty yellow. And it smells funny, I'm not sure what's going on with it, but.
Yeah, when you call Aaron in City Hall and get him to
We've
come
talked
out?
to them, there's nothing, they say there's nothing wrong with it, but if you put it in a clear glass, or even in your toilets, the water is yellow.
I think you were gonna check on it after the last public forum, because you said you weren't aware that we had water complaints.
Yeah, no, I talked to Aaron, and really what we got to do is as soon as it happens, call so he can, if you have an event like that, so he can get out and test at that point, or see if anything's wrong with the system, right? I mean, telling me I can circle back to Aaron and say that, but it's better if he knows right away that he can come out and either test it, or maybe he can tell you at that point, okay, yeah, we flushed the water, a hydrant or something, right? So. But the water tower will be able to run water back and forth. I mean, this one will be servicing over here, but that one will have plenty of water to fill gaps or do whatever we need to. So I think we're going to keep it half full probably. So I think that's the plan. I'll let the experts figure it out.
So is the water from the tower up coming down to the tower down?
It'll be able to run both ways. Yeah. So down south of the Barnum office is kind of our booster station, and that's getting enhanced, and it's gonna be able to run water back and forth and do everything we need to do with it, so. Yeah. They designed it so we can, you know, if there's a fire or something over here, we can utilize that tower if we need to.
Do you mind if I ask you where you live that you get bad water like that?
Across from Centennial Park,
So you live near Jennifer then?
Next Sunday.
Okay, see, I live on Court Street and I've not had any difficulty. So I consider myself to be in the old part of the town, I'm still north of the railroad tracks, so. But I've seen people in town post on Facebook that they do not have good water.
Yeah, all I can say is get a hold of City Hall and Aaron immediately so we can look into it.
So how soon does something have to be decided once the new tower is working and everything has, you know, been checked out for a while? That something has to be done with the one tower?
The old tower?
Yeah.
I don't know that we're up against any particular decision, but we have to maintain it. So as long as it's up, even if it's not operational, it has to be maintained. Now we have an agreement with a company that we signed years ago that they kind of do the maintenance of those towers for us on an annual basis. So we probably have to think through costs on taking it down versus cost of maintenance versus availability and who would be able to do a job like that and how fast and those things. So we haven't really talked about a firm date one way or the other.
Okay, I didn't know if the timeline or not.
Kirk might. If Kirk and Aaron do, I don't know what.
Will the council be talking about doing a special census anytime soon?
So-
We should be over that 2000.
Yeah, we did talk about it, and then we looked into it right after the election, and they gave us like a 18-month time frame to get it completed. But I see some towns that have paused it are starting back up with it, so it might be something we could do. We talked about doing it, but when we looked into it, it was going to be like 2 years, and then it was going to be another year before you saw the benefits of it, and then we're a year or two out from the regular census, so be a timing thing, really.
That has something to do with cost too, doesn't
So that would impact our road use tax, right? So our road use tax is per head. Now, special censuses can be expensive, but those are for bigger towns. For us, it would be, I think it'd be worth the money. We looked and thought it would be worth the money because, if it was 300 more people, then that equaled, I'm throwing out numbers here, that equaled $30,000, and the census was $10,000, well, then it makes sense to do it. So it's just how, then it would be a cost versus how many years before the census thing. So we're shortening the amount of time we get money, road use money, by 18 months or whatever it was.
Has there been any activity on some of the extra lots out there around Varnum and Absolute?
So a few months ago, we had a meeting to talk about committing $41,000 for them to put in for a state grant, a tax credit. They did receive $1 million tax credit. That came out last week. That Todd's LC has $1 million tax credit for a new 41 unit apartment complex. So that would be the land, I think he had it earmarked. Now, we haven't seen any plans from planning and zoning. I think he had it earmarked for straight south of the water tower up there, kind of at the top of the hill. But I know he's got the grant. I don't know whether he's moving forward or when or how. We haven't seen any plans in planning and zoning. But the state did have a press release and have a list of, I think they gave away $40 million in tax credits, and that was one for $1 million. So, yeah.
Any more commercial activity? going on?
Nothing that I know of. Kirk might know of something up there. He talks to Todd a lot more than I do. I know Kirk was at a Des Moines Partnership meeting tonight, so. What else? All right, so I've got, last one too, you asked me about Centennial Park. So I walked Centennial Park, and I've actually had a request for a couple of bids, particularly in the middle part with the bricks and some of the bricks that are missing. So I don't have those estimates back, but I did one like, let's just give me a bare bones estimate on getting it fixed, and then another one kind of blowing it out a little bit, and maybe even putting like a what do they call them?
Gazebo.
Not a gazebo, but like the sound, for bands and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, like a little mini amphitheater. You'd have to get rid of some of those trees, but I've talked to some tree people and the elevated trees, that I'm talking about that are kind of
That are behind that picnic table.
yeah, they're kind of up in
That's,
the air.
that's an eyesore.
Yeah, so that would be a little bit.
Okay.
That'd be a little bit pricier, but I'm going to have them give me a few different options and a few different bids, so I did look into it.
Did you look at the picnic tables? Because some of them were pretty bad shape.
The picnic table's there. I did. I didn't see anything horrible.
Or at the shelter. Or
The,
at
the shelter I thought was okay. It could use a coat of paint and some upkeep. So I mean I didn't go over there and see things falling apart. I guess I'd say, but
Well, if you sit on one side of the picnic table,
you're just rocking.
it's sketchy.
Yeah.
It just
I mean, I went. I did one of these to all of them. But yeah. So yeah, we did walk Centennial Park. Detailed water bills, I'll get to that. Ordinances will be updated in the next 30 days. Better be, I hope. That. Alicia's starting Parks and Rec here in a couple weeks. Oh, just generally speaking, communication. Everyone said they want more communication. So again, what we're trying to do here with that is I'm doing these every 3 months now. So I'll do another one before the end of the year. We're recording our meetings now. We're going to put them online. We put our packets online. This Parks and Rec position, Alicia's going to do a great job for us. I think it's going to allow us to get more active on social media with updates, get more active on our Facebook page and our website with updates. We have a real opportunity in terms of development, like you mentioned, Todd's Land. There's still a couple of lots left over by the Fairway and by Barnum. Most cities, from an economic development standpoint, you can get on the website and find what's available, how much it is, who to contact, what to do. So we've got some opportunities to enhance that as well, to where people can, a lot of people get on the website and look around for stuff, and if they can't find it, they move on to somewhere else. So we've got to be in a better position to kind of get that story out. And frankly, get some of the good stuff out. Because the team does a great job. Oh, Todd Reeder, he owns the 40 acres of land where the water tower is. Yeah, sorry, Todd Reeder, yes. Yep. So his company owns that 40 acres, I should say. He owns 40 residential kind of up east of Twin Eagles behind kind of the Wabi Sabi.
How long after code enforcement sends a letter out to take property after they get them?
I have a letter right here. Let me see what to say.
Oh, yeah.
I think the 15 days, this one says 15 days. So I think the first notice is 15 days, and then the second one is either 7 or 14 days.
They're giving them a second round.
Yeah, you'll get a second notice.
Oh, I don't know.
Yep.
So how long then before something actually happens to fix the problem?
So then it goes to our city attorney at that point. And again, they might get a municipal infraction, but that doesn't mean they have to do something. I mean,
So it still look like crap.
we'll go through the process and see where they're at, and then we can start finding them on a regular basis for the ordinance, but whatever the ordinance tells us we can do is how we gotta do it.
That's sad.
I know it's not city, but we've had lots of conversations about partners with parks. Do you have any update on that?
I don't. Nope. I know the money's in an account, but I don't know if someone's taking it over or what a couple of people have said they might want to or might have interest in. I mean, I can try to put people in contact with whoever it is that used to run it and see. I know that they've been dissolved, but
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was any plans to, because they would need to bring it back to life to get that money out, correct?
well, it depends what their bylaws say. So they probably should have done it by the bylaws already, really.
Yeah.
Well, if you dissolve like that, voluntarily dissolve, you should be sending it to a nonprofit somewhere else, is what you should do. But
Right. But it has to be for the money is still there.
that's what I hear, but I mean, I haven't personally.
Yeah, I know you're not actually involved, but just,
That's the scope.
you're in the know. You're more in the know than anybody else,
Yeah,
probably.
that's what they tell me, so.
We won't, we won't hurt this. I mean, it's gonna be a waste of time.
Is there anything in the works or plans to fix some of the streets?
Like where?
Like from my house to the Rita's, it's like driving down a set of railroad tracks.
Are you talking like the Sycamore or the side street? Locust Street?
And it's from Casey's and East, the Legion Hall.
Yeah.
I can pass it along. That's what our road use is for though, right? So
Yes.
if we need some of that stuff fixed or patched, we can. We're gonna be patching a bunch of the stuff in front of the fairway, kind of there in between the fairway and the post office. So that'll all get done the next month or two, hopefully. So yeah, I'll pass this along here.
Between the post office and Fairway, that's a good street compared to driving down this other one.
Well, I don't know if you've seen it lately, but a lot of the heavy stuff got to it, but just cracked some of it. But
Yeah, well, these are dips and bumps and some spots and everything else down these streets.
I'll pass it along. Rose and Nancy, I'm going to call you guys out in the meeting. Are you guys, the women's club thinking, so with the election coming up, I think there's 4 or 5 people that have signed up for council, there's a couple for mayor. I know originally when we did this 8 years ago, the women's club had a candidate for them. I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
The city can't do stuff like that, but if a nonprofit wants to hold something like that, I think it'd be a great idea.
I'm not sure that they can either.
Okay.
I checked some of the bylaws and, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Ben to see exactly
Yeah.
what we can and can't do, but
Right.
it'd be nice if we could get everybody in here in a room and the public could come in and ask questions. And I thought that was really helpful 8 years ago when we did it, because that was a time where we had contested mayor. There was a bunch of seats open and a bunch of people running for the seats, and like it is this time. So
Keep us in mind to ask, we might be able to supply cookies and something like that.
goodies. All right.
Refreshments?
Yeah,
So I'll talk to Ben about it.
yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll get this uploaded. And if you got any questions, please reach out.
Tony, thanks for getting that mess down where the
Good.